Hey guys, I'm John, and I wanted to start adding an extra video in once a week. This is going to start a new series called Preaching in Pajamas. You'll have to trust me, I am in fact in pajamas, but you might be able to see my bed head as well, where I'm just going to be doing a low-effort video in the middle of the week talking about either a conversation I had or just reading the Bible straight up. So today's conversation began. This is a book that I have been reading for the past several months. It's True Stories from World War I. And it gives first-hand accounts from British soldiers in the First World War. The story I read today was about a man who worked at a casualty clearing station. If you've seen the movie 1917, this is where the main character found himself at the end of the movie when he finally found his friend's brother. So, at this casualty clearing station, this man's job is to receive soldiers from the front who have been badly wounded and he talks about needing to determine who he is supposed to operate on and who he has to leave to die, because there are too many people and not enough space. The main way that they decided, and this is just sounds terrible, was to decide who they could help recover to get back to the front line, because the British Army needed troops. So I was having this conversation with my mom about this book and just about the grisly and brutal nature of war. So if you've talked to me, that you've probably learned that I'm a pacifist. I believe peace is the ultimate solution that we should be striving for, especially as Christians. But what she asked me was, are you going to teach your children to be pacifists? And that was a really interesting question that I hadn't really thought about before. So I remembered a conversation I had with another friend where we talked about the biblical advantage, the biblical virtue of gentleness. So one passage that I had for this is this. This is in James 3. Start beginning in verse 13. Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast or be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder of every vile practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere, and a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. The word that I wanted to zone in on here is gentle. There is another passage in 1 Timothy 3, and that passage is talking specifically about church leaders, and one of the things it says they are supposed to be gentle and not violent. You may have heard people say things like, I want to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. So I'm fairly active in the gun community, especially because I love historical firearms. And there are definitely people in the gun community who hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. They may be ready in case an intruder comes to hurt their family, but they hope that that day never comes. They may be training in case something bad happens while they are outside of their house, but they hope that that day never comes. However, there are also people who own guns or work with guns, and they are incredibly excited to get that opportunity to use it. Those people are not being gentle. I remember a situation a while back where a police officer was called to a hotel because somebody had seen someone with a firearm in the window. And he was giving this man, I think the man was in fact drunk, relatively complex demands to come towards him. And eventually, the man disobeyed a command and the police officer shot him. When they finally, during the trial, one of the pieces of evidence that was brought against that police officer was that the dust cover of his rifle had the words, "Get effed" on it. That man was not acting gently. So, I have no idea if I'm going to teach my kids to be full-on pacifists. But what I do know is that it is biblical. It is a biblical command for me to teach my kids to be gentle.